Was that document or?
I'm the founder of Writers in Kyoto. We've been going 5.5 years, and we've been putting on events, inviting famous speakers, running an anthology and a competition, and organising social events. And we're delighted, very pleased today to have Peter MacIntosh. I first met him, I think, when he was serving behind a bar. Bar, isn't it?
Bar, isn't it?
I remember that.
Do you remember? That's a whole other story.
And so I was with some surprise that I learned later that he was entering the geisha world and making contacts. I thought, really? That seems a bit unusual. Nobody else I knew was doing that. And then I got to hear that he'd made very good contacts, and I was at that time researching my book about Kyoto called Kyoto, A Cultural History. So for the chapter on geisha, I thought I must get some hands-on experience, if that's not the wrong and contacted Peter, and he kindly took me to one or two of his haunts, where there was a Geiko and a Maiko in a bar. And I sat there astounded as Peter regaled the Geiko and Maiko with his absolutely fluent Kansai Ben. And they absolutely loved it. It wasn't Maiko and Geiko entertaining us, it was Peter entertaining the whole bar. I couldn't understand a word myself because I can't understand Kansai Ben, but remarkably he was fluent, and he used that to his credit to win contacts in the geisha world. Next thing I knew, I was reading on the internet and in overseas press about this geisha expert who was giving guided tours in Gion. And I thought, amazing, that there must be gaijin before who had been entranced by geisha. But was there anybody in history who managed to make a living out of geisha? Peter created a job which didn't exist. He's the first person, I'm pretty sure, to have made a whole career out of geisha, and it's an extraordinary story for somebody who was a professional footballer once in Canada. It's extraordinary. This is really a unique story, and we are really lucky today to get the man in person to tell us about it. Peter MacIntosh.
Thank you. Well, I have no more to say. John said it all, so I'll see you guys later. Wait till the Geiko comes later. I know that's why you came anyway. But anyway, thank you guys all for coming. I know it might have been a tough. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to stay 6 feet away. And I'll sit down. So, I know it was a big decision to decide if you're going to venture out in this COVID-filled era. Fortunately, we're lucky enough to have a wonderful chef I know who offered us this place to use. And we have the air coming in, and hopefully you can relax and just enjoy my talk, hopefully, and you're definitely going to enjoy Miehina and her dancing. So, so last name McIntosh is a bit of a, I would say, quite deceitful because I don't know anything about technology. McIntosh, you must be, oh, gosh, I know. So about the
Your cousin.
Yeah, I wish. I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I was related. So, I'm going to use a few slides. Give you a little bit of a story of how, as John said, I had no one to mentor me in this world I was doing. I don't know if you can really see the images, sorry, they're kind of low end. So this is me as a 22-year-old Haligonian, as we're called in Halifax, Nova Scotia. all packed and ready to go. I was formerly, well, this isn't when I was playing pro, but I did play professional soccer in Canada. So the team went bankrupt, unfortunately, and I wasn't good enough to go make it big time in Europe. So I decided I would do what we called at the time a gap year. Well, the gap year, I had a working holiday visa because I'm Canadian. So I came, and I was going to go back and do my master's in journalism. However, I came and never left. So from that to this was just last weekend at every recital I was at. So actually, so I stayed. It's probably, I would have to say it's all because of this man right here, Ito-san. If I had never met this man, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. Might be alive, but I wouldn't be sitting with you here in Kyoto. So people ask me, how did you get involved? And this picture, it was the beginning. So being a naive foreigner in Kyoto, with these big eyes just taking in everything, these white-faced girls running around in kimono, I started collecting their telephone cards and their postcards. And one night I was out running around and I went to Metro. For those of you who live in Kyoto, you might know Metro. It's down in Demachinage Station. It's kind of a club. And I was sick as a dog. I was just on my way back from teaching English in Osaka. I decided to pop in and say hello to one of the few people. So I arrived in September 93, and this was about December 93. So I walked down, say hello to one of the few people I knew, and all of a sudden this Michael walks down there where she was in the bar. I'm like, okay, I'm sober, so I'm not seeing things. Anyway, shoop, she just scattered right out. I decided I'd follow her, being the naive foreigner, and she was talking to a gentleman. So I decided to walk up beside her and kind of tap her on the shoulder. Faux pas number one. I pulled up my cards and said, is this you? Zero Japanese at the time. She looked at me and gave me the pleasant piss off, basically. And the gentleman came over to me, oh, in broken Japanese, oh, Michael girl. And I'm like, yeah, look. He goes, oh, let's go. Okay, where? So the three of us hopped into a taxi and we went to a bar. And this is the first time I'd ever met a Michael. Look at me, I'm all like, I'm sick as a dog too. I don't get like very white. I hadn't been drinking for years. I was on the wagon, so it was great. So he took a liking to me. I got in contact with him. And I gave him my pocket bell, my beeper number. When he was in town, he'd send me and I'd call him back. He said, I'm at the bar we went before, so I'd come back from Osaka and I'd meet him at the bar. However, because I wasn't a drinker, I only used to get the call once a month. Then that summer I went to Thailand, like we all do, after a few months in Japan, and I came back a drinker. And then I got the call once a week. So that kind of sped up my introduction in the Geisha. So, I know this, a lot of people have heard stories that I married a Geisha, I married a Michael, I married someone. Well, I ended up I did marry a woman who was a Taiyu. And the Taiyu were the leading courtesans in the Edo period. They were the highest class entertainer. They were allowed in the imperial palace. So, anyway, she had to, because Geiko Michael and Taiyu weren't allowed to be married, she had to quit and we got married. Okay, so, and that brought me to 2002. I decided I was going to open a company. As John said, no one had ever done it before, and I had all this knowledge, and I started working as a fixer for TV crews that came in. This is 1999. Memoirs of a Geisha was published, and documentary crews from A&E, BBC, they all came, and I worked as a fixer, and I was interviewed as a foreign customer. So I decided, okay, well maybe I could stop teaching English at the high school because it was driving me crazy, and I started doing walking tours. So I started this company, Kyoto Sights and Nights, in 2002. Very good. I also studied the traditional arts, Nihon Buyo. Now a lot of you who do know me know that I have been photographing the Geisha for the past 27 years basically. And the reason I started Nihon Buyo is not because I'm very light on my toes, it's more so I could learn the choreography and understand, the right shutter chance, as they call it in Japanese. And I did, I did learn it. Instead of getting the photo when she's like this, I get the photo when she's like that instead. And also, being an athlete, I had to perform in front of a lot of people as well. So, the Geiko Michael, they don't have the luxury of being, meters away in a stadium. They're right, as you'll notice today, very close. So, just imagine what these 15, 16-year-old Michael, Geiko, Michael were, and dancing, and what they felt like when they were dancing this close to people. So me being out of my element, dancing in front of Michael Geiko was like, oh, you know, just terrifying. So not only did I learn the choreography, but I also learned the feeling that these girls must be feeling when they are entertaining, especially people they don't know. I think I should. So I studied singing. So I began my singing career in 2005, Kyoto. And I was kind of forced into it one night. I was at a Geisha tea house, and one of the Geiko, who was also doing the tea house, just got her teaching license, and her sensei was there. And she said, "Oh, you're looking for students, right?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Peter, you're the first one." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I became a singer. Let's say I began my lessons. I won't say I became a singer. That might be a bit of a reach. Anyway, I did continue for a few years, and I received a natori, a name. So in martial arts, it'd be like getting a black belt, or you know, a lot of the traditional arts, you get a name. Natori doesn't mean you're allowed to teach. It just means you reach a level in singing ability. If you can play and sing, then you can teach. And that's called a shihan. So it's a little different depending on the art you're studying. Arigato. So, memoirs of Geisha, going back again. So with my business, I decided to do big events, and I had a few offers to take the Geisha abroad. The first one was in 2004 to the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. So we traveled abroad. This was 2004. But Memoirs of Geisha was just talking about, they were just talking about making it a movie. So when it actually came out in 2016, after that I had to go to England. So I took the two Geisha, Miehina is on the left, and another Geiko from you. We took them to watch Memoirs of Geisha together. Of course, we've all read the book a few times, and I knew that the first question would be to the Geisha, did you see Memoirs of Geisha? What did you think of the movie? So the most expensive movie I've ever gone to was this one. The most expensive date. So it was quite interesting watching what they thought of the movie. I mean, you can ask me, what she thought. She'll tell you her own opinion. But it was interesting. So lots of interest. Memoirs of Geisha was generating. I began traveling with the Geisha abroad. First stop was San Francisco for the Asian Art Museum. After that was a documentary debut in Switzerland and Paris, and England, Ireland, Finland, Holland, and New York a few times. And just recently in September, California, Portland, before the riots broke out, and LA. So with my business, I started doing walking tours, which seems like, a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of people, and, smaller groups, so I wasn't going through the streets with a megaphone and things. And everything was going well until they had this guide license. So I had to, you don't have a guide license? I was like, why do I need a guide license? Kyoto City paid me to go abroad with the Geisha to MC an event. So anyway, so I had to overcome some of the things doing walking tours, but now there is no guide license, so it disappeared, thank God. It's ridiculous anyway. And of course, not only walking tours, I got into private entertainment, like John was mentioning, private groups. So I work with tour companies as well that want entertainment for their customers, private entertainment. This is the bar that I used to own. So instead of having, what you see a lot of times, like Michael's show, Geisha show, buy 3,000 yen and sit with 50 people you don't know and have a tea ceremony. I decided to, give it the authenticity. Just like, I am a customer, so I would never ask anyone to experience something that I wouldn't experience myself. So I began offering private entertainment services as well. And also big corporate events, 100 people, Sony Ericsson, I think. Had the CEO of Sony Ericsson on the stage doing drinking games. It was quite fun. And here, we're in Holland, Miehina, on the bridge in Amsterdam. Right? This is in England, in a castle, in a manor in North Yorkshire, England. There's the castle. This is in Finland on the steppes. It's hard to see, but this is drinking our first Guinness in Ireland. It's not all fun and games. I mean, it's not all work. There are some fun and games. Not all fun and games for me. Well, if you watch the documentary, you'll see them walking down the street, and the Irish are reacting to them. It's great. This is in New York. funny thing is, when we travel abroad, you think all the foreigners or the Westerners who lived in the foreign countries would be crazy. It's the Japanese tourists who freak out the most. They're the ones getting in their face. And yeah, this is San Francisco, and the very first one. Yeah, Switzerland. And I decided, so this in 2009, this is after probably all the trips I made until recently, I decided, hey, I'm going to start this project, Real Geisha, Real Women. So I decided, I'd worked on so many documentaries and so many TV shows, and I'm like, I think I can do better. I didn't have any, I'm a photographer, but I'm not a videographer. But I hired someone professional to shoot it for me and do the editing, and we put together a documentary in 2009, Real Geisha, Real Women. And that kind of began my project, the Real Geisha, Real Women project. I have a Facebook page, and I just put an Instagram account on. So I've been just, sharing information, not insider information or anything, but just keeping people, up to date on what's going on in the geisha districts, and supporting them and photographing them. And so yeah, I started a documentary 2 years ago, Geisha Renaissance, which about 4 years ago, which still is in post-production. And now, so because the geisha and tourism is taken on, we're going to switch gears a little bit now, but when I started in 2002, there was no one doing geisha tours, or there weren't many foreign tourists, period. So now what you see is, this is Hanamikoji. Welcome to Hanamikoji, the geisha district. Looks like a lot of fun, huh? Well, I've heard stories of the geisha walking down the street, people stealing their hair ornament, touching them, not to mention everything. What? Okay. So I guess why I'm here is just to tell you, I just explained how I got involved in the geisha district and the geisha culture. I'd like to talk a little bit more about what it's like to be a customer. And a lot of people see me, he's partying with the geisha, and hanging out with the geisha, what a life. I went into bars in it once with a Michael, and someone asked me, oh, how do you know the geisha? And some foreign English teacher said, he teaches them English, he gets them for free, that's why. And I'm like, oh. If only I did hire them for free, I'd be a lot happier. Believe me, so would my wife. So yeah, it is fun and games. That's a lot of fun. I do love my job. I do love being a patron of the arts. I mentioned to John, and he's in the write-up, I've been married into the world. I've been a fellow practitioner. I'm a foreigner. I'm a customer. I have different angles of seeing the hanamachi, as we call it, or the karyukai, or the kagai. There's many different terms, and when I do my tours or when I talk about it, I like to share my opinion of what I think about it and my experiences. So the first thing, I give you a little handout. First thing you have to learn is hanamachi vocabulary. I'm not going to go through every one, but if you take a look, there's some words there that, people say, oh, let's just talk about geisha. They can read, I call it Wikipedia sensei or YouTube sensei, They watch it and all of a sudden they're experts. And they walk down there and they point, here's where the Maiko live. They all live here. And they don't, because only 2 of them used to live there. Now they moved out, but no one knows the story. So they're Wikipedia experts. And there's some words, for example, hanamachi, karyukai. For example, karyukai, the flower and willow world, direct translation. Shikomi, that's the person learning before they make their debuts of Maiko. We call them tamago, little eggs, little things like this. Kazashiki, atokuchi, goshugi, just a ton of words here that are in my vocabulary. Probably, I use them as frequently as saying, hello. I don't usually, when I meet the Maiko on the street, I don't say, konnichiwa, very Ohio time. It could be in the middle of the afternoon. It's first time meeting. So yeah, those things I have to learn and keep up to date with, and of course, learning. I think not just myself in Hanamachi, but any of us who live in Kyoto, we have to learn what the real okini means. Mm-hmm. Doesn't always mean thank you. It can mean thank you, no thank you, take a hike, dream on, piss off. It can mean a lot of it. It's all reading between the lines. And believe me, I had to learn. I go, I would love to shoot that. Okini. I'll tell you a funny story. So there's a story, I don't even know where I heard it. It's been floating around. Someone, a Tokyo customer came down to Kyoto and he hired an out the Geiko. And they had a great night. He said, okay, so I'll see you tomorrow for lunch. She goes, okay. They part ways. The next day he goes to the arranged spot that he arranged. She didn't show up. So he's like very angry. He calls the tea house mother, goes, why isn't so-and-so here? Blah, 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 blah. And he just rants on, and she goes, hold it now. Well, I didn't hear anything about it. What did she say? Oh, and I said, I'll meet you tomorrow here at this time. She said, okay. She just started laughing. Mada, 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 mada. You're still a little green behind the ears, But, so, okay doesn't always mean yes. And also, another part of that story is he shouldn't have called the geisha directly. He should have arranged it to the tea house. So a lot of people have heard of the Ichigensa no Kotowari system in Gion, or another Hanamachi in Kyoto. By introduction only, or first time visitors are refused. That has changed a lot these days. It's a little easier to hire a geisha, but still, proper etiquette is you call your tea house. Like even though I know Miehina, our entertainer tonight, since she's 14, I don't hire her directly. I call the tea house that I've been introduced to, that I have an account at. I call the tea house, they call her. Of course I know her phone number, and because we traveled abroad and I need to know her in case of emergencies, or when, let's say she's had trouble finding a place I'm at, she'll call me directly. But I don't contact her directly regarding work at all, or privately. Regarding work after it's been booked. So if you saw her on the street, I said, how about next week, are you available? She will call the tea house, they have my schedule. So, yeah, you have to play by the rules. A lot of people think it's, whatever, let's invite them out for dinner. I'll tell you another funny story. Didn't happen, well, it kind of did happen. But I'll tell you a story that didn't happen. There was a customer on the bullet train going between Tokyo and Kyoto. And one of the Geikos on, because they travel to Kyoto and other parts of Japan quite a lot for business. So she was, saw the customer, she goes, hi, how's the session with you? He goes, sit down with me. Yeah, great. At the end of the month, you got a love letter, the bill. For that 2 hours on the bullet train. So, nothing's free in the Geisha. Just remember that. There's nothing free. That documentary I shot, paid for all their time. Doesn't matter how well you know them. They're professionals, I'm professional. They pay me, I pay them. So you keep it professional. I've learned a lot from the geisha themselves. I'll tell you a few little stories, things that I learned, I'll tell you, it kind of makes me look like a silly young guy, but I remember I had a bit of a crush on a Geiko one time, and she performed in the theater, and I sent her flowers, congratulations flowers, and I expected she'd give me a cell phone call and say, oh, thank you, thank you. So I saw her on the street one night, and I said, did you like the flowers? She said, hold on. Come over here, we need to chat. She goes, did I ask you for those flowers? I said, no. She goes, did you give me those flowers so I would call you and say thank you? I said, no. She said, shut up. I really enjoyed the flowers. Thank you. That's it. She said, I was going to say thank you when I saw you. So I learned something. Another few things I learned in the Geisha district. Being a foreigner, as John said, I entertain the room a lot, and a lot of these shacho, these business owners, hire me as their male geisha in a way, to be quite honest. So when you get treated, I've been, Ito-san, I don't even want to think about how much money he spent on me over the years. So when he treats me, there's nothing, it'd be rude for me to say, oh, I got the next round. He'd be like, whippersnapper, what are you talking about, You just say thank you. So I don't treat him, I treated him once, many years later. But my job is to treat the people who are younger than me, who I can nurture. So you pass it on. You keep the karma going. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here now. So, when I go to a pub and it's like, I got the first round, you get the second round. Like, I don't want to drink. I don't want a round. But if a guy buys me a beer or someone buys me a beer, if I don't want to buy them a beer, I won't buy them a beer. I don't want to be obligated. But if I buy them a beer, they're not obligated to buy me a beer. These are just a few things I've learned in drinking. And always carry your Puchibukuro. Puchibukuro. People say that tipping in Japan is not a thing. Well, they definitely don't hang out with the geisha world. These little envelopes, Puchibukuro. They're little thank you. Because it's not considered tipping because you don't know what the bill's going to be till the end of the month. It's a percentage of your kimochi instead of the bill. So it's like thank you money. They're usually 3,000 yen, 5,000 yen, 10,000 yen. Goshi tips, for lack of a better term. The last thing I learned from one of the geishas, she said to me, she goes, Peter, you know what? Work and life is like a byobu. The more you spread it out too thin, the sooner it falls down. So that was my tip. And believe me, I learned that lesson the hard way last year. But so yeah, there's not a whole lot. I would rather answer some questions if people have some questions. I'd rather not talk about myself.
Yeah. You haven't really mentioned the hardships that you face, because Guillaume's famous for being insular, exclusive. How on earth did you manage to get in and win people's trust? You must have had a lot of setbacks.
So you got the email. Thanks for asking that question. Make sure you answer that question. I'm joking.
No, that's the more interesting.
But yeah, no, well, there had been a lot of, being a foreigner, of course you stand out. So, the reason I did talk about it was I didn't want to get the violins, poor Peter gets to hang with the geisha and all these hardships, But it's not as easy, First of all, learning vocabulary, learning Japanese. When I met Mr. Ito, I could, domo arigato, Mr. Roboto, that was my Japanese level. I don't know that song, 80s pop song. So, when I met him, I put it in high gear and learned Japanese. Being a foreigner, even not even just with the geisha, but being a foreigner in Japan, period, or being in Kyoto, and if you're immersed in the traditional world, it's like, oh, Nihonji yori Nihonji nashi, you're more Japanese than Japanese. And as soon as you screw up, it's, yeah, buddy gaijin. You knew it. You knew you were going to fool and screw up anyway, you're a foreigner, so yeah, no big shocker there. So, you always have that floating around, or, fortunately, I've been around long enough that when I go to a tea house, and some of the tea houses are in private bars, members only, but still, there could be other customers sitting close enough to you. So when I walk in, they go, oh, gaijin-san, Maiko-san, yeah, Maiko-san desu. I'm just looking like, really, dude? Like, what's your 5th time here? I'm here 750 times. But fortunately, the tea house mother will go, dude, like, really? So they do. In the beginning, it was hard. I always had to pretend like, oh, yes, really, that's a Maiko-san, thank you for teaching me. I'm 50 years old now, so I can get rid of the cute gaijin, everything wonderful gaijin act now. But another thing, for example, let's say traveling abroad with the foreigners, with the geisha, everyone asks, why don't you get a bunch of geisha and travel abroad with them for 2 weeks and do like a show? I said, okay, well, first of all, you have the geisha, the community, it's like an ecosystem. So I would make money off the event, the tea house I'm using would make commission off hiring them, and the house, if they're still a member belonging to a house, they would make money. But think who would lose money? The restaurants in the area, the other tea houses that hire them, the taxis that drive them around, the dressers, you can't bring the hairdressers with you because there's only 4 hairdressers for all the Michael Geiko. The dressers, we have to hire a Geiko who can dress with us. It's not as easy, no one really thinks about that. Or for example, things that I have to deal with my customers, like, they're very shy when the Michael walks in. We only have an hour. And another phrase I learned in the geisha is time is money, honestly. So what happens is, they're very quiet and say, okay, we've got 10 more minutes, and like 5 minutes left, they go, oh, can we get some pictures? And honestly, she's got to be out that door on this minute because that clock keeps ticking. The incense sticks keep burning. That was the old terminology they used for the hiring the geisha, how many incense sticks burn. So yeah, people don't realize that time is money. No, we'll just, I'll just get a photo. Well, that 2 minutes is going to cost me a lot more than that photo. It's going to make you money. And so, the thing is, it's other things. Being a foreigner, of course, I still have things like, you don't talk about money with the geisha district. You just get the love letter at the end of the month. And believe me, people ask me, how much is it to hire Michael Geiko? I don't really know because I've never gotten the same bill twice. That's not a joke. When we travel abroad, of course, we set a rate for the, like if we miss a flight the next day, too bad. That's on the bill. The incense stick's still burning. Other hardships, I'd say, okiya, for example. When they have debuts, Michael have their debuts, or the Michael becomes a Geiko, we call it the erikai, the changing the collar. The women I hire a lot, the congratulatory envelope comes out. It's not $2, the envelopes come out. Michael makes their debut, you buy the whole bag and the nishide and all these things for their congratulations. The fact that I had to become a singer because of teacher said, you're going to be the first student, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, you know. So, although, you know, being a foreigner has its benefits too. They don't expect too much until they do. But yeah, getting the introduction, I did it properly. Ito-san took me under his wing for about 6 years before I ended up asking to get the proper introduction so I could spend my own money. People say, why'd you ask to get to spend your own money? You're a crazy guy. Well, you know, it gets a little tiring when you become an adult and you're still getting you're still milking an old guy for his money. And but yeah, some other hardship. I mean, another thing, for example, people come in and want to shoot the Geiko, right? You know, people say, you got such great access, man. The photos you can get. Imagine you're traveling abroad with them. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm traveling abroad with them. If I had my camera out every 10 minutes, they would not be happy campers when they were performing. So I have to give them their privacy. We finish an event, we go back to the hotel, or we actually shared a house once. You know, they close the doors, I close the doors. I don't even talk to them until an hour before the next event the next day. You know, sometimes at the end we'll go for a few drinks or something, but, you know, privacy. Or, you know, I even had this problem when I was in Canada. I was a tall, blonde guy. I stood out. So you can imagine I still stand out in Kyoto. So people are running around taking photos during debuts and things. I'm the tall, blonde guy, and I misbehave. Or even if it's not me and someone looks like me, I still get the blame. Or, that must be Peter's friend. All those foreigners doing the tours around Kyoto, they must be Peter's friends. They're not, you know. It's like, you know, you go to a restaurant, oh, you must know this guy, Gene, I'll sit you right next to them. Now, I get that 10 times worse, because any foreigner who's in the Geisha business must know me. And I must have told him to do this and do that. So, those are some of the hardships. I mean, but, you know, as I said, I don't want to sound like a whiner because I do enjoy my job. I mean, I get to spend my time around talented, beautiful, disciplined people. You know, and I don't like them all, and all of them don't like me. But hopefully we have a mutual respect for each other in what we do. And that's all I ask for. I'll tell you another story. I got lots of stories. So one time I was with Mr. Ijo at the bar, and he'd always call someone to come join us. And this one who for some reason I just knew didn't like me. She comes in and I'm like, ugh, she hates me. Anyway, she came in, pleasant, you know, we were talking, even started giving us a little hand massages. Don't take that the wrong way, you know, but just he was a regular customer, and so I was like, oh my God, at the end of that, geez, I misread that totally. So I thought. So a couple days later, I saw on the street, I'm like, konoida, sure. He ignored me. You'd think that I'd be hurt by that, but no. I was like, wow, she's such a pro. She did not show her dislike of me in front of her customer. No, of course I feel hurt, but I was like, well done, respect. And we talked about this many years later, and we had a big chuckle about it. So we're on friendly terms now. But still, another lesson I learned, professionalism. I learned a lot from these women. I'm older, and I've been in Japan longer than some of them have been alive, to be quite honest. I've been 27 years. You meet a 17-year-old Michael. And, I actually said that once. She goes, "How old are you, Peter?" I'm like, "I've been in Japan longer than you've been alive." She goes, "How is that possible? You're a foreigner." Let's think this through a little more. Right? I'm here 27 years. You're 16. But there's just that cuteness to that naivety, So because I don't have children myself, I kind of take this take it on myself. No one asked me to, but as a father figure or big brother, Oni-san, even or a crazy uncle, I don't know, whichever form they might think. But it's been a real pleasure to be involved with the Geisha world. Financially, it's testing. And it's, right now with with everyone in Japan hurting, you can imagine how hard the Geisha are feeling it. And unfortunately, my business is closely related to theirs, and I would love to be able to just open my trust fund and say, let me take care of it if you guys, keep having some parties and support you, but unfortunately I can't, so it's, it's very sad for me, I walk down the street every day, I walk through the Geisha room, and, Peter, we're looking for you, I'm like, yeah, next time, I feel like, I can't help you, right, but that's another thing with the Geisha, the 15-year-olds, I always say, they must have a side university in the Geisha world called the University of OPM, other people's money. They're good at spending it. And the Michael themselves, it's funny, you go for dinner, and what would you like for dinner? And we're like, I don't know, Kobe beef? Yeah, Kobe beef. They have no clue, because they've never seen the price list. My documentary, I went to Yamagata Prefecture with one of the Michaels, a shooter. She went back to visit her friends. And the mother, her real mother, asked me to come over for dinner, so we had shabu shabu. So we went to that supermarket. I'm like, okay, what would you guys want to do shabu shabu? So I got the Yonezawa beef, Yamagata beef. Big, really top end beef. It's only like 7,000 yen or something. The mother of the house was like, oh my God, like relax. And the mother, and then the daughter goes, Mom, do you know how much it costs to hire me? Relax. I think you can afford 7,000 yen. Anyway, so so these young girls who have no idea what money costs and know what money is and what things cost, and so for them, they think we're all rich. A lot of people think I'm rich because I hang on vacation. No, it's just priority. It's not cheap, but it's not as crazy expensive as many people think it is either. Let's talk about misconceptions now. So of course the old common misconception that there's a little bit more going on than people advertise. Well, I doubt it. I mean, they're women. Do they have boyfriends? Yes, I was one of them. And that's one reason why we had to get married, because I was not a full-on patron, or I was not, hiring her when we were meeting. I was seeing her for basically free, and that was not kosher. And as a customer, I was kind of like, get off the fence, pick a side. So we decided, instead of me spending a lot of money hiring her just to hang out with her, she'd get married. So, misconceptions about, the most common misconception. Also that it's crazy expensive. Having a party, geisha party, is $10,000 a person. I'm like, never been to one of those parties. Even at the Iifuji tea house, it's not, you're going to about $700 a person. Just to give you, so, and it depends on how many Michael Geiko you hire. The more you hire, the better dinner you have, the more expensive it gets, whatever. Just to touch on how I've seen it change over the years. The number one change I've seen, which I'm very, very happy about, is the amount of female clientele increasing. Miehina told me that about 30% of her clientele is now females in couples. Well, my wife and I, we hire Miehina and take her for dinner all the time. And she talks to her the whole time, and I get ignored, so I just pay the bill. Anyway, that's part of my hardships. But and that's been really good. I think it really nice because it's not just male entertainment. When I deal with these foreigners who come over and they're like, it's all, what's a white guy talking about geisha? White guy, yellow fever. The comments I get when I'm doing lectures from these ignorant tourists. So that's a misconception. Oh, no, sorry. I'll go back to another story. So when I first traveled abroad it's continued to relate to this story. When I went to San Francisco, we had myself, a white gentleman with an older lady in a kimono, the mother of the house, beautiful Geiko with nice coiffure but in kimono, and the Maiko with her ukiyo-e hair, probably as a Westerner would see it. And we go into San Francisco, and we were invited. We even had an invitation by the Asian Art Museum, so we go in and go through. Well, the guy at immigration was not the most worldly, shall we say. Sir, would you please come over here? Okay. What's your purpose? I'm Canadian. I don't need a visa. Blah, blah, blah. And here's our invitation from the museum. Anyway, the guy thought I was obviously a trafficker. Honestly, and you laugh at that, but no, this guy was like geisha, right? Geisha, right? And I'm like, oh. Anyway, thank God there was someone who was a little bit more educated and in touch with the arts. And he came and said, I saw it in the newspaper. They're coming. We got sorted out. So, And then the guy had the nerve to say after he said, okay, you can go now. Can we get a picture with you? So sorry, a little bit of a segue there, but being, I don't like to call myself geisha expert because I'm not a geisha, but geisha guru, geisha researcher, I don't know, geisha guy, I don't know, whatever. But I do have to deal with a lot of stupid questions. And a lot of, just because I don't get it, it must be wrong, Even I work with a German journalist who spends 6 days with us with the geisha. She got through school. She goes, Peter, I really appreciate what they do and everything, but I just don't get it. And I said to her, you don't have to get it. Just accept that it exists. You know, you have to get it one way or another. But and she, you know, she wasn't bad. She goes, oh, okay, no, I get it. You know, I understand that. It's good. But some people come over and just with these, you know, not even just go geisha gardens, or you know, they come on because they read Wikipedia or saw two YouTube videos or something. You know, they come over as experts and they're telling you what they're trying to, you know, how to say, legitimize all their weird thoughts or what they've been told. So yeah, that's probably one of the most stressful things I have to deal with in my business. Entertaining people who are very picky, first of all, because in Japan, it is what it is. It's A, B, or C. It's not A with a little bit of B, it's a C, and maybe you can throw a little D in there. No, it's A, B, or C. And starting on time, not being late, don't come too early. You know, there's all kinds of things that I have to deal with. And when you're working with a group of 40 and you have 6 people doing this, 6 people doing this, 3 people doing this, 1 person doing this, it's like, oh. So that's probably, that doesn't even have to do with the geisha themselves. Because, you know, they're oblivious. They just let me, you know, like when I take them abroad, I give them spending money. They just give back to me and say, just pay for stuff I want. They don't want to carry the money. You know, one time I was with the mother in San Francisco, she went shopping, she was in the Ralph Lauren shop, I'm in the back kitchen, carrying the bags. So it's not all glamour, believe me. Traveling with the geisha is so much fun. So I had 4 seats, we were going business class to San Francisco. So there's only 2 seats in business to an economy. So the Maiko, her hair, she has to keep that hair up for a week at a time, by the way, even when they travel. So she's in there, first class, or business class, and with mother, I figure, you know, she's older. And so great. So me and Umina are sitting in the back. She's just a newly debuted Geiko, so she's really, you know, kind of on her tiptoes, doesn't want to screw up. And I'm like, I can't sleep while they're playing. She's kind of dozing. I'm like, yeah, what do you think about this one? So I didn't let her sleep the whole time. So she's so pleasant. And the flight attendant came back and gave us, you know, champagne like the business class. So we were related. However, when I got off the plane, I said, how did you sleep? And the Michael said, oh, good, you know, it's fine. The mother goes, I sat in Seiza the whole time. I said, you sat in Seiza in business class the whole time? Well, I'm squeezed into this little like corner in there. So yeah, you know, even though I'm the paying customer, my company is, I just gave her that look. So yeah, carried her luggage all the time. That time the mother was a smoker, so you know she'd go for smoke breaks. You know, you hear gunshots in the background in San Francisco. You know, so the Asian Art Museum's like not too far from that shady district. So you're like, okay, where did Mama go? You know, so there's lots of things. One of the girls, we were in Finland. She went out for a morning walk, and I freaked out. I'm like, where'd you go? She goes, doesn't matter, I'm okay. Can you read Finnish? I said, no. She goes, what's the point then when you're with me? You can't read Finnish. That's not the point. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering about the time.
Okay.
I'm sure people have got questions.
Oh, yeah, please ask some more questions. Believe me, I can babble for hours.
So, you know, I was very curious about the geisha world in terms of education, the education process. So just as, for example, tea ceremony world is a kind of compendium or a distillation of so many traditional arts, and so by studying tea, you learn so much about gardens and architecture and ceramics and so on. So in a sense, I'm guessing that the geisha's training, you know, geisha meaning one who is an artist, geisha, and so a lot of it I've heard is to do with your ability to dance or your ability to play an instrument, or I'm wondering about the people who don't have specific talents in either dancing or playing an instrument, but you know, I'm thinking about like the 14-year-old girl who, you know, a lot of our students or people that we know, it's very Hello Kitty kind of land. And yet you think of a geisha as being the ultimate in sophistication in terms of how they relate to other people and customers. So what I'm curious about is how the geisha might learn ningen kanke in the sense of what's the most important thing for a geisha to remember, as well as the customer is always right because they're paying, but how does their communication skill become sophisticated, or what's the big learning for a geisha in terms of how they interact with people?
Well, good question. I mean, a lot of people ask, are they trained in the art of conversation? And yes, in a way, but what not to say? When to shut up? TPO, time, place, occasion. They do learn the traditional arts, and there's tea ceremony, which is kind of hilarious because everyone goes, have tea with the Maiko Geiko. Well, the Maiko don't study tea ceremony to form it. They study, as like you said, to learn about the other traditional arts. They don't study, have a tea ceremony with the Maiko. Why? I'd rather have a tea ceremony with a tea teacher than a Maiko. But they do study traditional arts. They must learn 2 songs before they make their debut. And going to like the social aspects, it's more like so just before they make their debut, they have a minarai, look and learn phase. And that actually doesn't finish when they make their debut. That's because they have a mentorship on Onesa, big sister. That goes on forever. So it's basically mentoring. And they learn, especially when you're with a group, they know which questions they're going to do, they're going to have, and they prepare those. But to be quite honest, I know this is going to sound demeaning in a way, but geisha entertainment doesn't have to be that sophisticated. If it's just like telling stupid jokes or corny jokes or just relaxing. Unfortunately, that's my biggest complaint about the geisha world now. It's not the geisha themselves, it's the customer, level of the customers. I'm 10, we're about drink. Want to sing some songs? No dancing tonight, just drinking games. Or I just want to take you around and parade you around town, show how rich I am. That vocabulary list right there that I gave you, I bet 80% of the Japanese customers don't know every word on that list. And that's the sad part about the geisha district. So I'm going to end with this point now. But yeah, so to kind of answer your question, it's always that mentorship, and that's where they learn. And for example, me and Hina-san, when we go out, the customer is not always right, believe me. She lets me know when I'm not right, very easily. But yeah, the mentorship, and they know, sometimes it's like, hi, it's more of a listening skill than social skills. Some are drinkers, some are not drinkers. I'll tell you, I had a story. This one geisha I used to think was a big drinker, because she was always fun. And I said to one of the younger geishas, said, this one likes her drinking winky a little too much. She goes, you know what, she never drank. She was that good. So you learn each one has their own little repertoire of their little bag of tricks that I think they use. So yeah, I'll finish on with the future of the geisha, I think. COVID's it's changed everything, but I think that if they want to, for sustainability, they have to start bringing up Japanese clientele, focusing on females and couples, and make it more, not family oriented, but just get people learning the arts. Why do you think I study singing? So that one day when someone brings up the shamisen, I can sing and they can dance to my song. And I can feel like I participated in the party instead of going, yay, pretty, kirei, sugoi. I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars and say sugoi, kirei. Honestly. I wanted to participate, that's why I studied. So, and in the old days, as John said, I entertained the group. That's how I was taught. The old thing I asked myself, what I was taught in Japanese forgot. The old customers used to grab the shamisen and play, and they would, like, okay, and geisha would go, yeah, well, they would, customers singing and dancing, and, that whole geisha entertainment has disappeared. Now it's like, okay, do these 2 songs, play the drinking game, go and beat it up, oh my God, the boring, Jesus, it's terrible. And I remember a geisha coming in Kyoto one night years ago. She came back almost in tears. She goes, so what's wrong? She got in this party thing. They didn't even ask us to dance. She was upset, like not teary, but like really, like kind of not happy. That was 15 years ago. Like imagine what she does now. You're like, oh my God, no one wants to dance anymore. Play this stupid drinking game the whole time. It was terrible. There's no thought going in as a customer, and without that, and it's also the responsibility of the tea houses to nurture customers. They're not nurturing. They're saying, thank you very much, 2 kompina, 2 dances, and thank you very much. See you later at the restaurant for $50 and have a tea ceremony. And that's it's going to go a little bit more on about this, but yeah, just that. I even saw Rolls Royce now has an SUV. I'm like, oh my God. So it's like when you see a geisha offering a service at this Chinese restaurant for 3,000 yen, and you get a sip of tea, and you have 40 tourists with their backpacks bumping into everyone. I'm like, oh, that's like the Rolls Royce offering an SUV. At least the SUV is still quite expensive, but and that just makes you cry.
Peter, it's time for
okay.
the bento.
Okay, I'll get them. Thank you guys very much. I mean, we'll have some more time to chat. A little bit all over the place, but that's kind of my life. And thank you for listening. And we'll get the bentos to you. Oh my gosh. So,
Questions?
any questions? She won't bite, I promise. I'll get the elbow once in a while.
なぜ稽古になりたいと思ったんですか？
そうですね、もともとは人と違うことがしたくて、で、まあ、早く自立もしたかったし、でやっぱりこの世界は人とやっぱり違う、簡単になれる世界でもないですけど、で、まあ、頑張ったら頑張った分だけきちっと何かで評価されたりとか、そういうところがちょっと面白そうかなと思って。
So the question was, why did she choose to become a Geiko? First, she wanted to do something that was a little bit different than anyone else. She's also, it's not easy to become a Geiko, so, and in this world, you see results of your effort. I heard this question like that. Which version is this? Yeah, she's
What's the hardest part in her training?
しんどいところ、
難しいですね。
そうですね。まあ全部しんどいです。全部しんどい。でも多分皆さんお仕事されてると思うんですけど、楽なことなんて多分ないと思います。慣れてはきても全部それがとは思いますし。まあ、その中ではやっぱりたくさんいろんな方にお会いできたりとか、サプライズをしていただくこととかもあったりとか、それを忘れるぐらいやっぱり魅力的なこととか楽しいことがあるので、なんか別にしんどいと思っても別にしんどいと思わへんし、疲れたと思ってもしんどいとはまたちょっと意味が違うかな。
いいですか？お茶の勉強なさるんですか？
じゃあはい。
裏表？
五花街は全部共通して裏です。
お客さんにお茶を差し上げる。
そういう機会はちょっと少ないですね。お座敷で出すっていうのはそうそうないのですけど、でも必ず春の踊りではお舞台を見ていただく前に芸妓さんがお茶をお立てさせていただいてっていうそういうご披露の場もあるので、少ないといえど必ずやっとかなければいけないことですね。はい。
Does everyone understand the Japanese answer? So the first question before that was, what's tough about her job? Everything. And that was a joke. She said, however, everyone else works, so compared to your job, my job might be easy because I get to meet different people. Even when I think it's tiring, it's almost like a surprise every day because I meet new people. And also, it's tiring, of course, but every job's tiring. But she really likes her job, and so it's not really that bad. Second of all, the second question after that was, does she study tea ceremony? Yes, Uda Senkei. All the 5 Geisha districts study the Uda Senkei School of Tea. And do they serve it to customers? Not very often, she says. Very few chances to do it in the ozashiki, the entertainment form. But for some formal occasions, they will perform tea ceremony, like before the dance recital, they have a little tea service available where they do perform tea ceremony for customers. Go ahead, if you want to go ahead.
So about the communication with customer, this might be a difficult question, but compared to her life before she was a geisha, is there anything specific that she learned during her training about how to communicate with customers, specifically to make customers feel good?
芸妓さんになる前に子供のプランから入れたり会話するとか、そういう技とか覚えていくこととか、上手になるようにその稽古とかありますか？
まずはやっぱり言葉遣い、敬語ももちろんですけども、やっぱりもともとのこちらのこの課題としての言葉を覚えないといけない。 でもちろん地方から出てくる子はイントネーション直さないといけないし、まずそこがまず基本ですけど、あとこうやって誰かと喋るっていうのはやっぱりもう数でしかないかなって思いますね。
So of course the first part was, we talked about a little bit earlier, learning the Kyoto dialect and even the Hanamachi dialect, which is a little different than Kyoto dialect. And for people coming outside of Kyoto, that's a very hard step. But as for training, it's just spending time, and the number of times you learn, it just all comes with practice. やっぱりその基本とかね、マニュアル通りとか、このお客さんこれやったらこんな言わなかったとか。
舞妓さんの間はやっぱり舞妓さんという皆さん理想を持ってお話ししはると思うので、やっぱりそれに応えられるように舞妓さんをお返事したりとか、舞妓さんの方が多分いろいろ求められるものは多いような気がしますね。で、やっぱりその間に、まあ、5年間させてもらったように、あ、こういう喋り方もしてええのやとかって、やっぱりそれも経験だと思いますし、で、芸妓さんになってそういう舞妓さんで経験させていただいたことを踏まえて喋るようになっていくので、芸妓さんの方の方がやっぱり圧倒的によく喋れるっていうのはそこやと思います。
So yeah, so also the Maiko-san, they similar questions all the time. So they more have like, for lack of a better term, the manual, which they're used to being, they're talking about. It doesn't get very deep, it's kind of the regular things. And then when they become a Geiko, and then they learn, they watch the older sisters learn, oh, that's what they can talk about. Then when they become a Geiko, they use that experience as a Maiko to add to their repertoire and use it in a more free way of speaking about things. So it's basically just it comes with time.
My impression is that the life, particularly the training life of a Geiko is pretty strict, with the supervisor and a lot of rules that regulate their daily life and so on. Is that true?
So, good question. さんの世界の中で厳しいですから、ルールとか行儀とかやっぱりずっと見られてるから。
そうですね。やっぱり見られてるっていうことは常に意識しとかないといけないので、まあ気をつけないといけないことはほんまにたくさんありますね。そうですね。お茶屋さんのお母さんとか姉さん方もそうですけど、まあやっぱり例えば出張で新幹線の飛行機に乗るってなると、一般の方の皆さんの目もあるので、常に気は最低限。でも逆にそれは当たり前になってくるので、逆に気にはならなくなってくるのも考えられますね。
So yes,
当たり前になってくる。
So yes, you're totally right. It's strict, and there's always eyes on them, whether it be tea house mothers or mentors, onei-san tachi, and also, but when they're on the road or they're on the bullet train and they're in, when they're not in Western clothes and wearing ball caps and sunglasses, there's always eyes on them. So there's always pressure to behave, because it always comes back. But for them, it's just become atarimai, like that's the way it is. So it just becomes automatic, basically, for them just to always know that there's eyes on them. So they always have to have their guard up. So. ならへんかったらここ出す。大丈夫。
じゃあそのお姉様のバレバレですよ。
大丈夫。今のところ大丈夫。Said, am I answering it or not? I said, if you don't, I fill it in the blanks. She goes, but you're too Japanese here, we get by them.
でも今最近ではやっぱり厳しくなったって言われると、やっぱりこのコロナに対しての対応とかが、ちょっと悲しいかな、また同じ。違う町でですけど、やっぱりちょっとかかってしまわれた方がいるので、そうなってくるとやっぱりまた皆さんも足元を抜いたり、敬遠されたり、やっぱりマイナスに持たれるイメージがやっぱりすごく強まってしまうので。
So it's been especially difficult now during Corona because, as I mentioned, in the other district there are a few, like 9 or so cases of it. So they become a lot more strict with, the mask and behavior. And of course, if you do, they're not talking about, for example, this is just me kind of simplifying it, like no one's talking about the people at this company who got sick. They're talking about the 8-9 Michael Geiko in Gion, Kyoto. So it's like, it's just amplified. So, and it doesn't make the Gion district look very disciplined, does it? So they're taking extra precautions not to be grouped in with that anyway.
メモワーズ・オブ・ゲイシャを読みになりました。
読んではないですけど、一緒に映画を見に行って
Didn't read it? Went to live with the game.
この格好で。
どうだったどう思いました What did you think of it? Hear it from her, not from me. What did you think of it? This sums it up right there.
いや評価するのが難しいのですね、そもそも。時代背景が今うちらが活動させてもらっている時代とはやっぱりはるか昔のことをもともとモデルにして描いておられるので、実際にその時代がそういう風なことをやったのかもしれないですし、そうじゃないかもしれないし、肯定も否定もできないです、そもそも。だからどうですか言われてもうんしか言えない。
So it's not for her to judge. She was not born in that period. The district, the time she lives in is totally different. So if someone says that's the way it was, she goes, "Oh, really? No, that's not the way it was. Oh, really?" So her answer really like, "Oh," that's all she really answered.
一つ言えるのはチャンツィさんの頭言うてはる格好はちょっと違うかな。
She can complain about how terrible her hair was done in the movie.
言えるのはそれぐらい。踊りとかはやっぱりそもそも日本舞踊ということ舞とかをされたことがない方が踊られてるんやし、そこのまあまあ。で、そのとやっぱりこっておられるのも海外の方ですので。
So of course, I
冷
went.
静に見ると、奮闘しづらい。
So of course, the dancing, she said, well, it was shot by a foreigner, and none of these people were traditional dancers, so didn't expect much. So no comment. Just.
日本の方が監督やったら本当に大丈夫ですか？
So if it was a Japanese director, there'd be a little more of an opinion.
海外の方から見たらそういう風に見えるのかもしれないです。
How about the film Omocha?
Omocha? Omocha.
おばちゃんは見てしまうけど。
She didn't see it. There were some problems. He had some problems. He was blacklisted from a few places. That's like 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, he had some heat from that. I remember.
お姉さんになったことありますか？舞子さんに。
聞いたこと、妹さんは聞いたこと、うちはお遍路す。
No, she hasn't been. I said, what about me, Pete?
No.
I understand she's been in Kagai for 15 years or so. In her opinion, what has changed most? From her point of view and regarding her customers?
入る前と見てきて違うこと変わってきた。今この私がデビューさせてもらってから
比べたらどう違う？
コロナ。
コロナ以外。
もう一番これが一番変わったことだと思う。こちらまだ16年しか。17年目に入らせてもらったんですけども、やっぱりうちの世界の大先輩はもう80オーバーの姉さんもいらっしゃるわけで、その姉さん方はもう50年、60年と現役で過ごされてきてまして、その姉さん方ですらこんなん知らんわ言わはるので、そんな姉さん方が経験したことないことがこちらに残ってると、それはうちらもどないしたらええのって、そんだけ長い経験がある姉さん方でもこんなん知らん言ってたんですから、どうしようもないなって。
So yeah, about Corona again, even the elders in the districts, 60, 70, 80-year-old people, they haven't seen it in 60 years. Corona is like we've never seen anything like this. So that's the biggest change. But customers too. Go on with the customers. The customers don't want things.
お客さんはそうですね、やっぱり年々海外、このコロナを少し、抜いた置いといてですから、まず海外のお客様がやっぱりおいでになってくれた率が少 ごく年々上がってるような感じはまずするのと、あと女性ばっかり、俗に言う女子会っていうお席も実はちょこちょこ増えてる感じで、
Foreign
あと
customer?
はファミリー、ご家族で一緒に来てくれるっていうのも、昔は本当に殿方ばっかりでもうお接待でとかっていうイメージがやっぱりすごく強かった感じだと思うんですけど、だいぶそれは変わって、もちろんそれが全くないっていうわけでもないし、やっぱりそれは根強いものですけど、でも風潮としてはすごくそこが一番変わってきてるかなと。
So of course the customers, where they're all, you thought about big business, heads of business, taking out clients to entertain. That is not disappeared. There are still people like that. But of course foreign clientele with tourism and all female parties, joshikai, female parties, and couples have increased.
億万長者のお客さん、芸妓さんに自分のチャイを与えることもあるんですか、今でも。
とても稀な話になってると思うんですね。多分その億万長者と言われる、俗に言う今でもセレブの方です。多分セレブの方のお金の使い方がだいぶ変わってきてらっしゃると思います。多分今やと船を買われたり、ジェット機買われたりとか、お車何台も持ったりとか、使いどころが変わってきてるとは思いますね。
There big patrons that are sponsors and set people up in businesses like you hear about stories in the past. Things have changed. Billionaires spend their money on planes and yachts. And in the old days when they were doing that, people weren't buying yachts. And you didn't have too many, IT billionaires back then who were in their 20s and 30s. So.
こんだけお金の使い先が物とかにしてもすごく増えたんやと思う。昔はやっぱり車もなければ、船を買うなんてとても持ってんのほかみたいなぐらいにとてつもないものだと思うんですけど、それがもうちょっと小型のものができたり、もちろん車も高級車になっていろんなメーカーさんが作っておられてとなってくると、やっぱり使い道が私たちではなくて物に対しての使い道、選択肢が増えてきている。その分やっぱり皆さん分散しているんじゃないかなとは思います。
There's more things to spend money on now. In the past, this is how you spent your money, entertaining people. That's how you showed your status. Now, there's so many things to spend your money on. And unfortunately, they've taken a back seat to that.
芸妓さんってやっぱりお客様にお見せするサービスする方だと思うんですけれども、芸妓さんとしてどういうふうにこれから発信していきたいとか、どういうふうになっていきたいと思いますか？
もうちょっと敷居を低く感じていただけたらな。いや、それは入る門口は高いです。でもよく初めましての芸妓様がいらっしゃる。芸妓さん、舞妓さんがこんなに喋ってくれはるとは思わへんかったんです。すごくいいイメージを持ってくださる高嶺の花みたいな、本当にそれぐらいすごく値打ちをつけてくれてはるんやなっていうのは思うんですけど、その値打ちを下げないままもうちょっとフレンドリーに思ってもらえたらと思って、うちは常にもうめちゃめちゃ緊張してらっしゃるお客様とかやと、もう例えば今時のお笑いのネタでも流行ってるものとかってちょっとでも笑ってもらえたら、それだけで少し緊張感まず和らぐのと、少し親しみやすさを感じる。それをコツコツとうちはしていけたらな、うち個人の目標ですけど、そういうふうに思ってもらえたらいいなと思って。
So how do you think they're going to have to, change things for the future to keep it going? This is her personal opinion, she said. A lot of people put us up on this pedestal, and it's great, it feels good, but it's also hard to access in a way. And a lot of people are surprised with how just, we speak normally, we're just regular people. And to bring that down, keeping, you know, the respect level at a certain respect, but also being a little bit more welcoming. I think that they're going to have to find a way to do that in the future to keep this going. That's going to be the challenge, though.
In that respect, I'm noticing a lot more adverts for coffee shop mic or chance to talk with a geisha in beer garden Geiko. I saw one advert. How does she think about that?
どうも、やっぱり最近、ビアガーデンのし、このここのお子さんのバーでマグネ聞かれますよ。なんか3000円上がって、なんかそういう、いっぱい増えてるし、
プランみたいな。
プランみたいな、どんどん広告いっぱいあちこち出てると思うから、
どう思います
安売り
安い難しいところですね、それはね。でもやっぱりお茶屋さんに行けない方々、入れない方々は結局どこかで窓口がないとお会いできないわけなんです。でそれを設定しはるのはやっぱりそこのまずお店自体の問題だと思うので、いかにそのお店の方がこちらに対しての値打ちを持ってくれはりつつ、いかにお客様には少しでも知っていただけるように工夫をしてくれはるかっていう問題やと思うので、実際そのことに関してうちらが直接そのお店からお金をいただくっていうことはしてないので、やし皆さん今日も皆様がどういうお値段設定のプランでおいでになってくださってるかどうかうちは分からしまへんので、それはすごくちょっと難しい質問ですね。でもすごくいいことを言ってくれはったと思うんですけど、うちはやっぱりどんどんその世界が廃れないようにしていこうと思うと、やっぱり知っていただく皆さんに知っていただくことがまず一番やと思うので、どんな形であれそうですね。だからそのお値段設定を置いといて、そのお値段に見合ったことが逆にうちらができてるかどうか、そこも逆に大事なんじゃないかな。
So, yeah, difficult. For example, she just began like she has no idea how much you have paid for this entertainment. It's none of her concern. Of course, there are places where are cheaper, but she has no idea. She doesn't get paid directly from that shop. She gets paid through the kumiai. The customers do not pay her directly. There's a whole chain of people before she sees any payment. She does see payment because she's self-employed now, but she has no idea what the people are paying for, and she doesn't care. But the main thing is that people have to know about the culture, and that's the first step. If people don't have a way to know about it, they always have to become a customer of a tea house, and it becomes mendokusai or troublesome. Then they don't learn about it. She's more important. She's more happy to think, well, is she actually giving the customer what they paid for, even though she doesn't know what they're paying for? So it's more of her. Is she satisfying the customer? So, and getting to know the geisha is the main thing. Getting to know a little bit more about this world. And I would add properly is something that she really doesn't think about either. But there's a lot of people who are with misinformation. Tekitoni mite people you see. So they are shinpai.
Without having someone as a guide like yourself, Peter, can foreigners thoroughly enjoy the Geiko experience in terms of playing games, songs, understanding those intricate nuances in language? Does she have any opinions on that in terms of the foreign experience?
私みたいな人になってもやっぱり一般人詳しいことも楽しくしていく私からするとだけまた私みたいな専門家は一応
いやよくそれこそ去年とかちょっとその前からそうですけど、ピーターさん以外の海外の様ばっかりっていう時期があって、でその時は基本的には通訳さんだったりガイドさんが海外の代理店さんとかね、そういうのが絡んではるので、通訳はしてくれはりますし、でも言葉の違いはあってもさしてもらうことは一緒で、その言葉を通訳していただくだけなので、 別にうちはここまで専門的な方がいらっしゃらなくてもっていう時もあります。
So yeah, she doesn't need a person who is as knowledgeable as I am. As long as she can get the point across, her entertainment really doesn't change. As long as, she gets the point across.
日本人の方にしても、海外の方にしても、疑問とか、こういう理想を描いてくれても、言葉が違うだけで、皆さん同じことを大概思ってくださる。だから日本の方がこういう質問をしてくれはって、海外の方がこういう質問をしてくれても一緒なだけで、言葉が違うだけで。皆さんやっぱり疑問に思われることは、やっぱり海外も日本の方でも一緒なんやなっていうのをよく思うので。あとは私は残念ながら海外の言葉をあまり喋ることができへんので、やっぱりそういうガイドさんであったり通訳さんがいてくれると助かる。そこは一番言えることですかね。
So yeah, I mean, even foreign customers, Japanese customers, pretty much the same questions, same interests. So it's just the actual language that is different. So I guess she's saying everyone speaks language and have a good time. And unfortunately, she doesn't speak English. So, but yeah.
But what about the point that you mentioned before about, especially for the Japanese customers, that there was a certain level of education and sophistication that seemed to accompany geisha activities, so that they can trade poetry, or they can dance, or they can play the shamisen. Has she seen anything or any difference in how the Japanese customers have changed over these years?
昔のお客さんの交代の会社に引退する方で、それがお客さんが知ってるのかもしれない。
そうですね。やっぱり稽古とサインとお客様っていうのはもう昔に比べたら随分出てはりますね。でも全くいらっしゃらないっていうわけでもないので。
寂しい
はでも逆に言うとうちはもうその少なくなっしゃってる状態でもデビューさせてもらってるので、だからもうそれは多分もう超ベテランの姉さん方ぐらいはやっぱりそれを思ってはることちゃうかなとは思いますね。
So yes, of course, the people who are studying the traditional arts are decreasing as customers, but she debuted only 16 years ago, so she kind of caught the tail end of any customers who knew anything about the arts. So she's not really lonely or sad about it. She didn't really have enough experience to feel sad about it. Okay.
I was wondering if before the corona, all those tourists in the streets, does she feel scared? Sometimes, like the attitude of the tourists who are rude, taking pictures, following. Is it like?
やっぱりコロナ前に道混んでるし、もう撮るときに怖い。
Does she feel insecure?
無視するわさっていく。
宮川町はそもそもそういう囲まれることっていうのはそもそも少ない町やったので、さっと走り抜けるとかも簡単にできたので。
So in her district, Miyagacho, it's not as crazy as some of the photos I was showing you earlier with people all over the place yet. So she, there's ways she can escape the crowd if she has to, but no, she doesn't feel any of it.
でもこの間さすがに宮川町でも舞妓さんデビューされた子がいたり、舞妓さんから芸妓さんに入れ替えされた子もいたり、そういう時はお披露目でやっぱり黒紋付きでお寺さんにご挨拶が表に出はるんですけど、でやっぱりこう舞妓さん芸妓さんのファンというかオタクというかですかっていう方々がやっぱりこんなコロナの時期なのにわーっと表にやっぱ立ってらっしゃるんですね、結構な人数で。さすがにその集団を遠目で見かけた時は遠回りして帰りました。
So there's been a few debuts and changing of the college from Michael to Geiko recently in the district. A lot of camera people are following them around. And so when she has to make her way through the district, just because of Corona, she feels a little bit scared now because there's a big pack of people closely packed together.
外ですけど、でもあんだけ人数いるからちょっとみんな怖いと思わらへんのかな。
So she's more worried about the customers. Are they going to be all right with all that closeness and taking pictures like this next to each other? I mean, everyone's wearing masks, but still. So she's more
じゃ
worried
なかった
about
らうちもバーンって突っ切って帰りますけど。
She goes, I don't care. I found a way. I get out. I have my shortcuts. You can be-
あんまりこう気持ちのいいものではない。
So does anyone, before she runs away, she's not going to be around, does anyone, I know this is going to sound typical, would anyone like to get a selfie with her or something? Come on now. Selfie with her. Or shashin, or just a photo or something? Okay, before that, she's going to give you her Remember Me card. The little stickers on the back. They're not business cards, because they don't have any contact details. They're Remember Me cards, called Senjafuda. So her name is Miehina. So when she made her debut, her mentor, big sister's name was Mieko. They took the Mie from Mieko into Miehina. Unfortunately, her mentor passed away 3 or 4 years ago, 92 years old. So if any of you want to check out my documentary on YouTube, like Jimmy Fallon, YouTube. Miehina is in it when she was a Michael. It tells a little bit more about her personal story, as well as her mentor as well.
What do you call those wooden blocks that
They sleep on?
Yeah.
Takamakura. The high pillows. Takamakura.
Is she using one of those?
No, because she takes that wig off every night and sleeps normally.
Ah.
But as a Michael, they have to bring it on the airplane too when we travel. One girl forgot hers, so she had to use a roll of toilet paper with cow food the whole time.
Are you making another documentary at the moment?
No, but I am. I just started shooting 4 years ago. Got like 80% done, and then
楽しい質問を。
the guy.
他の人ともなんか
Great documentary.
何
It
喋ってる
doesn't
か
work
もわ
all
からない
that
け
people.
ど。
It's footage that I need editing. I'm not an editor. I'm not a cinematographer.
なんかこの間うちにありがとう。美味しい同じやつで、だからこの間はうちに同じデザインがあるんです。はい、あとの申します。
Budget of any, I had a sponsor and kind of late on. I mean, we've done all kinds of things. I'm up for anything.
でも待ってどうしたの？
Back in your cater.
昨日の何枚あるかな。
How many kimonos does she have? How many do I have?
Too many to count.
そうそう、too many。でもね、お稽古用とか、夏の浴衣とか、そう例えば踊りのお舞台の時とかの楽屋に行く時のお着物であったりとか、でこうやって裾引きと、でお姉さんみたいな普通のお着物でお仕事に行かせていただく時とかもいろいろパターンがあるので。100はないかもわからへんですけど、50はオーバーしてるだと思いますね。今のでざっくりでいくと、この衣装だけでも、裾引きの衣装だけでも、まあ10着以上はいるので、
季節でこう変わってくるんですね。
そうです、そうです。なので、あ、本当に便利ですね。あ、すまへん。
You want to go up and get a photo? I know it couldn't sound any cheesy, but hey, she's very good.
あきこと一緒に行きましょうか。
Could you take a picture and would you send it?
Yes, so she's going to take up her mask in the photo, but she won't be talking, that's all. I'll move the chair. Yeah. Your little react.
Very small.
That's very clear.
今度実践しましょう。ねえ、オンラインの会で。
マスクだ。
Sure, of course, yeah. Is it just regular push?
Comment je peux lui donner les photos?
Oh, okay. I don't know how much you get. If you just get the top, it's fine. Yeah, more of the face. This is more interesting for me.
Oh, and they've been opening for so you could have probably told.
I'm wondering if I'm going to get anywhere next summer.
For 2 hours. We were laughing like.
Yeah.
It was important.